Now we're on hold now, right?
Oh, not anymore.
Okay, here we go then. All right, good evening and welcome. This is the June 26th, 2023 scheduled meeting of the school committee. Call the meeting to order. It's 4:33. This meeting is being both audio and video taped this evening, and I would ask that everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Sam LeBlair, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Sarah Trulio.
Gordon Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Gregory Thompson.
Taylor Rochelle. Heather Brown, Director of Curriculum.
Okay, thank you all.
Before we get too far into the meeting, we do want to take a moment and recognize Mr. Thompson for being our chair this year, which was another year of not only success, which you'll see later on in the presentation, but certainly had its challenges. So this is presented to Gregory Thompson, Chair, Yale School Committee, June 26, 2023.
Thank you, Gordon.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to sit in the chair and be voted unanimous best school committee member. Thank you. Thank you, Gordon, for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. We appreciate all the extra stuff. Yes.
Thank you.
A lot, Greg. Thank you.
Okay, back to work. We have approval of some minutes, please.
Move to approve the June 5th, 2023 regular session meeting minutes.
Motion made by Sarah. Second by Antonella, discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed nay. Motion carries 4-0. Committee and subcommittee communication. Sarah, would you like to start this?
Sure. We had our final collaborative meeting last week, and we had some great input from the members relative to the cell phone policy that we're going to talk about later, and that has already been placed into the additions that are in our packet. I was able to get to a couple of the field days, which were really awesome to see, and especially given all the weather and smoke concerns that happened, that they were able to go off without a hitch. And I know I was not able to attend, but I did hear from both Heather and Gordon about the Diversity and Equity Steering Committee meeting, and that seems to be another positive session. So that's all I have for today.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
I got to attend the Years of Service ceremony. We have a lot of teachers that have been in this district for many years. I think that says something about our district and our students and our community, that teachers enjoy being here. But thank you to all the teachers. That's one of our
Hey.
I just wanted to moving in a really positive direction. They just finalized it. I'm just about to be settled. And I was also able to vision.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now. We have an opportunity for visitors to address the committee. Seeing none this evening, we move to. Oh,
That's the next agenda.
okay. All right, moving on. We have a trial for late bus for Birchland Park Middle School and Wilmot High School for the 2023-2024 school year.
Okay, in your package, you have some information on a trial late bus. I'd like to invite Louie Coates, who just came in. She's an ELHS student, and she, along with, come on up.
You can have a seat.
Sit over here, honey.
Wherever you're comfortable.
Yeah, in the middle. Just, you should be closer to the microphone. That's all. Thank you.
That's what you were asking me before?
I was just asking you to look out Kumi, and welcome her, buddy. Yeah, and then, Mr. Mackey, online, do you have, oh, there he is.
Yes, I do.
Daniel Macalubo, I'm saying that right, sorry Daniel if I'm mispronouncing that. Both Kumi and Daniel did their civics project on looking at bringing back, because at one time, now probably over 20 years, at one time, we had a late bus that ran between the high school and the middle school. I don't know how many days a week it ran, but they were looking at bringing back something. And so in your packet, you have a pretty incredible survey where they got 300 students at the middle and high school to respond. That gave us some really good data and spurred on some more discussion. Ms. Blair and I met with Umi and Daniel. I think Ms. Brown also met with them, and they had some communication with the Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collective. More communication started behind the scenes, but the outreach that Daniel and Umi did was pretty incredible. So before we get into more discussion of this, I'd love for Daniel and Umi to just give us some idea in terms of how they came up with the civics project and then some of the researches they were going for.
Since it's been a plan for a while, I've always been looking forward to having more access to transportation. For the first years when I moved here from Florida, around 5 years ago. My mom was mostly on her own with transportation and my father was traveling to work. And my grandfather didn't live with us yet. So I missed out on a lot of opportunities for staying after for extra help and doing after school activities. It's just by my grandpa moving in with us recently that I've been able to have more access to more things like extracurriculars and sports, which has been a huge part of life now. And I was just thinking, like, I wonder if anybody else had similar experience with this. So I decided to work on this project with Dan, who also had a similar experience. We didn't really have as much transportation, access to transportation as well, because of working there. There's always other people in other situations that they may not have access to transportation, such as home responsibility, or maybe they're working, maybe they're supporting something that we don't know of that's in their personal life. And so we did the survey to find out more about the demand for this. And I really believe that this after-school bus would be very beneficial to our school. As the overwhelming results for the people who are saying that they would want to use this bus, or that they have missed out on extracurricular activities or extra help in their grades and studies because they did not have access to transportation. That's why I thought it was very important to do.
Daniel, did you want to add your thoughts and some of the background? I know that you came from another high school where this was actually being done.
Yeah, it's just connection. My audio is a bit glitchy. You said I hear the thing, so kind of like going through this process is like it's been like a struggle a lot to be able to find transportation to go like from school back to home, especially being like a lot of different clubs and also like sports as well. And we thought that it would be very beneficial, I said again, to make sure that no students like in lower grades who come after us are going to have to like be faced with that kind of adversity. So we thought that this would be a product of the school environment in ELHS and Birchwood Park, giving students that access to be able to pursue the extracurriculars that they want in school without having to fear that, oh, my parent, my guardian's not going to be able to pick me up this day, so what would the after school clubs?
Thank you. Thank you for attending from Uganda. I did not realize you did not mention that in your email. We really appreciate the effort that you've undertaken here. So in your package, you can see the not only the great response that they got in their survey, But the days that most students would access the late bus, and we then looked at, with the LPBC, what other districts are running late buses, and there are 3 districts currently running late buses through the LPBC: Agawam, Hampton, Wilbraham, and West Springfield. And we looked at how they ran their late buses. In some cases, with bigger districts, West Springfield, Hampton, Wilbraham, they have more buses to utilize, both for sports and for possible use for late buses and so forth. Agawam's model was the one that seemed to fit our structure the best, because they used the career tech bus. When the career tech bus arrived at the high school, they then keep the career tech bus for roughly 10, 15 minutes, and then that becomes their late bus. We could actually do the same thing, and we have tentative confirmation from the collaborative that we can do this with our career tech bus. Our career tech bus arrives around 2:50. If we keep the career tech bus to about 3 o'clock, 3:05 at the high school, that would allow students coming off activities and extra help to, then it would head over to Birchland. Birchland activities would be getting out at that time, so we were over at Birchland somewhere around 3:10. We held the bus to about 3:15, 3:20. That bus could run 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday and Thursday. Tuesdays are district meeting days, so there's no activities after school. And we could run it next year using the dividend that we're going to receive from transportation from the LPBC. We don't know how much the dividend is going to be, but we do know it's going to be probably upwards of 10,000 or more. And late buses of those 3 districts right now are costing anywhere from 4,000 to about 9,000. So right now we can do it, take the dividend we're going to receive from this year's transportation costs, where the collaborative struggled with getting all districts enough drivers, which means there were a lot of consolidation of routes, which means buses that we had already paid for didn't happen on a daily basis, and so they have to determine all of that this week, really figure out what dividends are coming back to all 7 districts. Then we would reinvest back into transportation and run this as a trial next year. Business side. Daniel, made it happen.
Yes, awesome.
Question, discussion. How does that sound, Fumi? 3 days a week? Real fun.
Very good.
Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
Fumi, I just want to say thank you. I mean, this is something that we've always wanted at the middle school for years and years and years. It's been one of the things that we've talked about so often. It's something that has just been brought up, and so thank you for actually making that happen.
Move to approve the trial late bus for Berkshire Middle School, Jeff, for the 3-4 school year, 2 days a week.
Motion made by Phil. Second by Amy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed nay. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's nearly midnight, we're done.
Oh my God.
Just keep going. Like it's 1999.
Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Well done, thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Mr. Page.
We'll work out details and information.
Yeah. We have preliminary approval now as they do all the routing. We got to stay on the collaborative to make sure that career tech bus, which was being used by other districts, is not going to be used by other districts. So I think it left here and did athletic events for other districts. That's just a guess. I could be wrong. Now,
Cautiously optimistic that we'll have more drivers next year as well. Things are hopefully better each year.
If they're fully staffed, then all those buses stay with us.
Exciting.
It is exciting.
All right, we will move along. We have the Summer Public Schools end of year presentation by the leadership team.
Mr. Page, don't even leave, you're right there. You're invite everybody else from the set.
I'm just going to scoot all the way over here.
The entire leadership team is here. And we have a pretty comprehensive presentation, so we might as well start right in. But we're going to let you know and celebrate what we've accomplished this year. And so you know that our SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, and keep every student in mind, right, Dr. Allen? That's right. Get to hear that next year. I know. Don't miss it. I know you know our district mission and very functions. And so, as all these goals work together, the one that really starts the whole process is our focus on the whole child. And each year we look at revising slightly what the overarching goal is, but then certainly looking at action steps and benchmarks. And as you'll see as we go through slides, we did very well in achieving most of our benchmarks. We're getting very close, especially you'll see some of the student survey slides and some staff survey slides. Either going past or getting close to what our benchmarks say as you look down at the different benchmarks. Chronic absenteeism, if the state gives us 20% again, we will be under 3%. If they calculate it at 10%, unfortunately, we will not, as a district, be under 3%, which was our original goal. So that debate is still up in the air as to whether they're going to grant us that or not. Last year, they more or less took it off accountability, but displayed both 10% and 20%. So we'll see where that lands. Ms. Brown loves to explain that.
Well, it's always good to remind folks. So this is how Panorama presents the data. It's always in percent favorable. So, for example, if it said 34%, percent favorable, that means 66 did not respond that way. So everything's in the positive, and you can just look at the percentages to see whether it's a good response or something we need to work on.
So remember, K-2, this is the teachers responding in terms of how they're seeing their classes now. Just immediately as you look at the slide, you see everything went up. So that's a positive right there. The fact that teachers are feeling that all of these things, emotional regulation, social awareness, classroom effort, engagement, and so forth, have gone up. Two that I would hone in on that we know have been challenging this year have been emotional regulation, which has gone up and is back into an area that we've seen in previous years, and engagement. Although 68%, it has gone up from the midpoint, and so teachers are feeling that students are engaging and able to engage, and that probably has to do with the fact that emotional regulation has gone up as well. But nice to see that everything, as our teachers think about their classes and how they ended the year, went up. 3 through 5, and then as we get to 6 through 12, these are students responding. And so here, one that we always hone in on is supportive relationships, making sure that our students feel that there's a go-to person in each of the buildings for them And if they go to that person will help them problem solve and resolve issues or challenges. And so 3 through 5, that's gone up to 93%, and that's the 99th percentile of all school districts that use panorama surveys. So we're excited about that. School climate, we're also excited it's 82%, but we'd love to see it not stay as it was at the midpoint, so that hasn't gone up. One that we have to think about is school safety. And remember, school safety, and you'll see this on both slides, 3 through 5 and 6 through 12, that is where the questions around bullying happen. And so as we've seen in our surveys this year, that has actually gone down over the last 2 surveys. And specifically, it's because more students are responding that they've witnessed bullying or they've been the target of bullying. So what we need to do more of is making sure that students have access to and feel comfortable reporting bullying, as that hasn't necessarily gone up. We're not seeing a correlation between the reporting of bullying and the fact that students are witnessing bullying. But as you saw mid-cycle through the end of the year, we're seeing that slightly tick downward, which means people are answering that. A good thing is that positive feelings, that's gone up. More of our students 3 to 5 are feeling on a daily basis more positive just about classes and socializing and being at school. And challenging feelings, this is where you have to remember that everything's in the positive. So it's gone up, which means more students are experiencing fewer challenging feelings. I've explained that correctly. So that's a good thing. To see that one tick upwards, that's a good thing. We'd like it to go past 70%, but to tick up is a good thing. And the fact that we're seeing students engage more in classes and feeling like they're engaged in classes, that's a good thing too. All right, 6 through 12. Again, you're seeing that supportive relationships has gone up a few ticks to 90%, and it's in the 99th percentile for districts responding to this survey, which is exciting to see. School climate has gone up. And then, as I said, school safety, when we got to those questions, if you dig in, and you can click on all of our schools can click on these different topics and go directly to the questions and see how their schools have answered these questions. And more people are reporting as the year went on, witnessing bullying and or being a target of bullying. However, again, positive feelings went up and challenging feelings, in the case of reporting in the positive, went up, meaning that fewer people are experiencing challenging feelings. And so that again is exciting. I'll get into the staff survey. Now, one thing I would note is that last year we had fewer than 158 responses. I want to say it was somewhere around 107, if I could be wrong on that. It may be as we go in this survey that the 137 number pops up, but we did not have 158 responses, so that's exciting that more people are responding. Staff members do respond anonymously, so they can give us their objective feedback, and they do. We have a lot of comments that we have to go through this summer, both good and hopefully constructive. So one thing that we're excited about is just enthusiasm for coming to work and working with students. If we look at somewhat enthusiastic to extremely enthusiastic, 83.5% of our staff members responded that they are in the somewhat to extremely enthusiastic. If you add slightly enthusiastic, you pick up 97.4%, which is pretty cool. So there's enthusiasm in all of our buildings, and that's nice to see. Interesting that it correlates very closely with how they're seeing the students' enthusiasm. If you look at the percentages here, students, they're feeling that students are somewhat to extremely enthusiastic is about 81%. And then if you add slightly enthusiastic, it goes to about 96.2%. And so that's the staff's thoughts about how enthusiastic students are on a daily basis. This one is one that we still need to work on, but we're very excited that if we go from belong a little bit all the way to completely belong, that's 92.4% of our staff reported, 98.1%. If you go belong somewhat to completely belong, that's 92.4. So that means that roughly 1.9% right now are feeling like they're not as connected to their buildings. And so we still have work to do, but we're excited about the fact that we have such a high percentage of our staff feeling like they belong. This also was quite the highlight. Having someone, not necessarily an administrator, but someone to whom a staff member can go to help resolve issues and problems, 96.2% of our staff members have someone in the buildings, and that's exciting. Just pop to the next slide. 87.3 have an administrator or central office administrator to whom they can go, and so certainly that's something that we can start to dig in on and make sure that as we work with not only ourselves as a leadership team, but we work with groups like CLE, where we're looking at how we support and feedback we give. We can always improve on that and see if we can inch down the 12.7 and inch up the 87.3. But 87.3 was exciting to see. Please stop me, actually, if there's questions on any of these. Okay. Here's the 139 responses. So I think I was accurate that we only had about 137 responses last year. So 139
is different is because the survey goes out to everyone, and then there's certain ones that are specific to teachers. And I believe this one also brought in paraprofessionals, even though they're not necessarily. So we got to work on that too, because most of the people who are part of collaborative planning time are teachers. But that's why the responses are less, because if I'm a secretary or a custodian, I wasn't asked this question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we have to do a better job on here is clarifying in the survey when we talk about collaborative time what exactly we're talking about, because I think we did have paraprofessionals weighing in and teachers as well, and it's probably two different things depending on which group you work within. But obviously the big number here that we need to look at is the neutral. We have a lot of people on the fence about where this is going. Much of our focus lately has been elementary and building the elementary collaborative time, but this is a survey that went out district-wide, and so we have to start thinking about also how are our secondary folks answering that question and what does that look like. So we really need to focus in on that group. Certainly we also have to focus in on the group that disagrees or strongly disagrees, but the fact that we have 42% that are neutral both gives me hope, but also says we have to do more.
And we've offered training for department heads and collaborative planning time facilitators, but we also need to do more to make this time feel effective and useful. So we are planning on offering a course for teachers on things like facilitation, looking at data in your group, all sorts of things that will really help if they are a department head or a common planning time facilitator, will make this time more useful.
And actually, one of our bigger focuses, somewhat naturally coming off COVID with all the Zoom meetings and so forth, was building more teacher voice and leadership. Next year, it's going to become much more formal as we really look at how do we do a better job as a district starting to develop future teacher leaders and or administrators. And so that's something that we're very aware of. Interesting as you go to this slide and you think about, okay, so we had 42 or so % that were neutral. Yet when you ask the question, does the collaborative planning impact their lesson planning? You get 87.8% that say it either is slightly helpful to extremely helpful. So 87.8% see the time as being helpful to some degree to their own lesson planning, which I think is a pretty positive result. Then how optimistic are you about ELPS improving in the future? If you look at somewhat optimistic to extremely optimistic, around 61.4%. If you go slightly all the way to extremely, you pick up a larger chunk, and it's 85.5%. So certainly how we support, how we message, how we include, all of the above, that's things that we need to look at to start to look at that 10.1%, 14.6% that are not optimistic right now. So where does that leave us as we look at the whole child from a district perspective in terms of meeting our goals? So we're excited that our students continue to feel supported and have positive relationships with 90 to 92%. We saw that was both in terms of supportive relationships, 99th percentile. Originally, our benchmark was somewhere around 80%, so we're above that. Our climate right now, both for staff and students, is very positive. We would like to see more of our staff feeling that not only do they belong, but that they're feeling optimistic about the future of either their building or ELPS in general. As you continue down, it's nice to know that 96.2% of staff members, despite how they may feel in terms of the climate, have something to go to problem solve. That's important. Just as it's important for students to have that, it's important for staff to have that. And 91% of our 3 through 5 students and 83% of our 6 through 12 students feel like they are part of the community at their school. That's actually one of those embedded questions in the climate area of the survey. And however, ELPS students are still struggling with challenging feelings, which we know that's something that's going on nationwide. Even though we saw upticks in terms of students experiencing fewer challenging feelings, which was great, we still know 30 to 37%, depending on the grade span who is responding, are experiencing challenging feelings on a more regular basis than, say, they did maybe even a few years ago or even last year. And we do think that as we continue to implement in year 2 the new curricular materials that are more student-centered and are aligned with DESE standards, that all of this becomes a little bit more structured and understandable as we move forward. So those are all the takeaways, at least in a quick synopsis from the whole child goal. I'm going to turn it over to the schools to pick up where they were with whole child and their actions.
Hey everyone, I'm going to talk about this slide, or actually 3 slides for the 3 elementaries. We decided to put some pictures up for you this time because a lot of our data points haven't changed since we were here last time. And we knew that Gordon and Heather would be presenting survey data. So we completed year 2 of second step implementation, which was very successful at all schools. They're taught weekly by our counseling staff and school psychologists, and the classroom teachers remain in the room to support during the lessons. Community circles and morning meetings continued daily, which helps to build the strong environment that is shown in the survey results. River Valley Counseling has been a huge resource for us. The number of students needing support continued to increase all year, and we've actually already started waiting lists for next year. And this summer, the counselors are still coming into the school to meet with the students on the days, at least I can speak for Mountain View. Danielle is coming on Thursday and Fridays to meet with the kids she met with during the school year on Thursday and Fridays. So Meadowbrook had 16 students this year, Maple Shade had 20, and Mountain View had 15, and those numbers all almost doubled from where they were in the fall. The guidance and adjustment counselors at each of our schools also had an increase this year in the students needing support. At Meadowbrook, 149 students meet regularly with a counselor. Maple Shade, 139, and Mountain View, 177. And then we wanted to highlight some of the fun things that have happened since we were here last. So these are just some activities since March that we've had. This slide is Maple Shade. And the upper right-hand corner is a picture of the student-created award-winning anti-bullying video team and what they worked on this year. Bottom left is the International Food Festival, which had a huge turnout. Top left is the Family Movie Night and Art Show combination. So their art show was outside and then a nice movie also once it got dark. Bottom right is the East Longmeadow Veterans Memorial Day reception at the high school, which some of the Maple Shade students were able to attend. They did some other activities that are staples at Maple Shade: the Color Run, the Heart Health Challenge, the band and orchestra concert, which was Tanglewood style. They had a drama club production this year of Annie. An assembly with local author Sam Birch. Thank you. And a learning carnival. The next slide is Mountain View. So if any of you remember, we did have a Mountain View garden that kind of went by the wayside during COVID. Well, it was resurrected this year. Rebuilt the garden beds and planted a lot of vegetables. So people are going to be coming all summer to keep watering and keeping it going. The bottom left, believe it or not, is Mr. Potter, dressed as Hagrid, because we have Harry Potter Day every year. And he actually had the day off and came in to do car line and greet the kids in the morning because he knows how much they look forward to it. We also had Star Wars Day, which I had a video of. What are the things called?
Lightsabers.
Thank you. Lightsaber fights, but I didn't want to take up too much time with the presentation. We had our annual talent show again, which Mr. Katie, for those of you who remember him, always ran, but he retired and moved away. So I had 2 staff members who stepped up, and we were able to hold it at the high school. And then we held it on the last day for the kids to see. Grade 4 went to Forest Park Zoo for a field trip. We also had a drama club production of 101 Dalmatians. We had a staff versus staff kickball game and art show combination. So we also did something that both things could happen on the same night. We also had our concert, band, and orchestra performance Tanglewood style. Grades 3 and 5 walked to the Apple Place during the last couple weeks of school for ice cream. The grade 3 class went to the Connecticut Science Center. The high school band came to perform for us during the last week of school, and it was a huge success. It was an effort to recruit, but the kids just loved it, and the high school kids loved being back at Mountain View, so it was great. Our after-school program, the Spirit Squad, went to serve lunch at the Senior Center twice, and the kids loved it. The seniors loved it. So that's probably going to happen more next year. It was very successful. We were a little worried about how they were going to interact, but it was great. Awesome. So we will continue that next year. Field day, of course. And then something I added that I think is going to happen at all 3 schools next year is my PE teacher, Michelle Bongiovanni, is also the department head for PE, but she did a survey as a pilot on social awareness and social skill management and how aware students are about themselves and their classmates socially and how well they can manage their feelings. And actually, the questions came from Panorama, but they were different than the survey used for everyone. So I just have 2 examples. There were 10 questions and she did a pre and a post. So one of the questions was, how often do you remain calm even when someone is bothering you or saying bad things? And from the fall to the spring, 13% growth in how the students reacted to that kind of situation. And when others disagree with you, how respectful are you of their views? And there was 24% growth in that area. So next year, I think it's going to happen at all 3 elementaries. And the last slide is Meadowbrook. So field day, I can't see a picture, but I think there's one up there. Their APE teacher actually held the first pre-K field day that they've ever had. So that was great. They had spring music concerts. And then in the picture on the bottom left, they had a kindergarten mini market. So it was a cross-curricular activity between math and social studies that taught about producers and consumers. And students created a product, and then the staff and families came to shop to purchase what they made using pennies. And the students worked the registers, accepted payment, and provided change. For Spirit Week, they had a crazy hair hat day, red, white, and blue flag day, beach day, and Spartan day. Meadowbrook, as well as Maple Shade and Mountain View, had a lot of principals for the day after the E-Leaf dinner. And the highlight at Meadowbrook was that they all got to call the buses at dismissal. So that's what was the most exciting thing for them. They had many community service events, and food drive and an Earth Day cleanup are examples. And cross-grade level activities such as buddy reading and a special recess, which I think you can see in the top middle, where the second graders taught the preschoolers how to play board games at recess in preparation for their transition to kindergarten. Thank you.
Did you know that you are the 3rd person in the span of 2 weeks that didn't know the term lightsaber?
I knew it, and I
don't know what's
actually
happening with people.
Because I'm old, Connor. I'm probably one of the few people here that saw Star Wars, the original, in the movie.
What's the hit? Much bigger.
Sorry.
They had lightsabers in that one though too, Leanne.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I get it.
I actually had to write down Hagrid because I couldn't remember when I looked at the picture yesterday. It's also the end of the year.
It is. We're talking more about River Valley and the services we get from them, and I think we're fortunate that we have them, and students are fortunate to have that access as well. I brought up this concern before a little bit that we are continuing to grow that in terms of use of public facilities for a private company, and they're getting paid, I know, through insurance, so that does things a little differently. Looking at it long term, I just want us to keep an eye on that. I don't really know where it goes. What I don't want is education to be privatized, and I know that's a far extreme of that. But as we start to offer these external services internally, I just have some hesitations on going too far in that. So I just thought I'd mention it to all of you.
The biggest benefit that I see is that there's several kids in the school that we were trying to get into counseling for so long, and the waiting lists for private therapy are so long, or parents just don't have the time to bring them, that they're getting such a huge benefit out of it. And Danielle splits her time between Maple Shade and Mountain View, and she's just become like almost a staff member. Not that she is being paid by us or anything, but she's very involved in the school. She's one of the people in the garden club. It's a huge benefit. The financial aspect, I don't really have any involvement in, but I just feel that, I had a couple of students that were actually with me for 4 years because of retention, that starting in 3rd grade, we wanted to get them into counseling and just never could. And they benefited so much from meeting with her. So
it's also a different type of counseling than a school counselor would provide. It's a therapeutic level support and we reserve our referrals because it is a limited number of slots that they have for kids that could not or would not access it outside of school hours. So not only is it helpful in that way, but it's a very different type of counseling than we would ever provide within a school setting.
Are we referring more students than we have in the past for that specific service, but we just happen to have it now internally to offer? Is that a fair statement?
And actually, I think that's a reflection of the times.
I don't know if
We have
we're
a mechanism to provide referrals prior to this.
If we, or like direct referrals.
You can make recommendations.
Yeah.
Outside companies, but
Parents.
there's no relationship where we could actually, like we have a liaison now who actually does the intake paperwork in our building and relays that to River Valley. Prior to that, it was a hope and a prayer.
It's really hard for kids to access the academics if they're having all those issues.
Yeah.
So
And what
would be losing
if they didn't have it? Only, not only are they working with River Valley, but they're also receiving, services through our guidance counselors, our adjustment counselors, and this is that next level that they need. And going back to what Elaine said about Danielle and Catherine, they might be from, an outside agency, but they really care about our kids. They get to know our students very, very well, and they aren't staff members, but they really immerse themselves in our culture and really, really get to know our kids, and they care deeply.
The kids are hungry for it. At lunchtime, Danielle will come in I'm always on lunch duty, but sit with a student that she is providing services to. And it's amazing to see how many kids flock to that table that they want to sit and talk to her. So they're not it's not a paid service then for those students, but they're getting so much out of it. And the collaboration between her, Norma, and Nick in my building is huge.
I don't know if it's a team. It sounds like they've become a part of the
And
team.
I don't know if you've seen it. I know that we've seen it. Students who might be a little resistant to coming to school, the days that they have that they know they're going to be meeting with Danielle, they're excited, and they definitely make a point to come to school. And Danielle is really able to help them, get on solid footing and be able to engage with the day.
All right, so at the middle school,
to the middle school.
Yeah. At the middle school, we continued what we said in March, which was a major focus, social emotionally, on self-identity and self-regulation, sort of identifying the emotions you're having and sort of being able to control the emotions you're having, which is always a problem in young adolescents, but I think is even more of a challenge for the world since COVID, amongst other things. So we continued that focus in our advisories and within our day-to-day functioning. The pictures here are from Unity Day. We went big on we call it Unity Day. It was really Unity 2 hours, but it was a very cool 2 hours. It was designed completely by teachers. We have 12 teachers on our anti-bias, anti-racist committee that meets monthly, and they put together all of the activities for Unity Day. It was fun to do something completely outside the school day, but in the school day, which you so rarely do at this point. So every kid did 2 workshops, one on personal identity and one on social identity. And it was different by grade level, and we had ABAR members facilitating all the workshops. So like the picture in the gym there is 7th graders in an empathy film study. So they were watching different scenes from different movies and analyzing whether the characters were demonstrating empathy, and if they did, to what level. The bottom left is 6th graders doing an activity with Mr. Schmidt in 6th grade, empathy cards, where they're reading different scenarios and discussing what empathy would look like. The top right was just an activator where students are picturing walking in someone else's shoes. And then the last half hour of Unity Day we really went big with our full school lip dub. We had a lot of anxiety around trying to pull this off, and frankly, it went fantastic. I'm sure some of you have seen the video. But that bottom right, in the 10 years I've been at Birchland, we have never once even considered putting all the students in one place at one time. And on that day we did. We put all the students, and that's the cafeteria and the gym, opened up. and it went awesome. It went awesome. So that's the very end of the video, which I had already gone through the entire school. So that was sort of the culmination of our advisory for the year, learning about ourselves, learning about empathy for others, and sort of learning self-regulation and control. In addition, just to add to what we talked about in March, I want to re-stress that we worked closely with the Academic Leadership Association, which is a group we brought in. They worked with a group of 6th grade students. They, just like River Valley, also a part of our culture. This group, that we went and found, became very close to our teachers. They met with the teachers. They met with parents. Oftentimes they would contact parents for us, and they really changed the trajectory, at least within the school walls, for some 6th grade students. And so that partnership was fantastic. It's something that we hope to continue. We had a 6th grade student facilitate an African book project. He worked completely with Mr. Pearson. It was Mr. Pearson and a 6th grade student collecting books from students and staff to help build a library for a school in Africa. That was pretty cool. You saw the different field trip requests coming through. They had to change here and there, but we had students at Shaker Bowl. We had students at High Meadows. We had a fantastic trip to Washington, D.C., which went very well this year. We had Springfield College for ropes course and team building. We had STEAM at Interstate 91. So we had field day. We had a lot of different very cool things, which we love to see. Student council planned a ton of events in the last 2 or 3 months of school, which is always great at middle school. And then we also did some work for both the East Food Pantry and the Springfield Rescue Mission. I say we, the kids did. The kids led all of that. So we had a really nice close to the year in terms of fun activities, but still pushing social emotional learning in authentic ways that kids could grab onto and help improve from.
So we just really wanted to focus in. Of course, I don't have my glasses. So basically, the supportive relationships piece being at 91% is the backbone of a lot of our work. The things that we've presented to you guys over the last couple of years of putting people in flexible places to support kids individually and in small groups, and just seeing that pay off. Some of the work that's been a part of that is the guidance curriculum that's linked there. It just highlights that every grade level is getting 4 different doses of guidance curriculum every year, and it builds upon itself. So as a student moves through high school, they're digging deeper into some of this curriculum that our team has developed. Our guidance team also managing the See Something, Say Something week, which there's a little overview there that kind of highlights the different things that they do throughout the week. And I think a lot of our work also can just be surmised in a young lady who's stressed out about Algebra 2 class and just hates the class. And so we talk to her guidance counselor who talks to the graduation coach, and they help her learn how to talk with her teacher. And 3 months later, she's downstairs with 100% on her last test and an A in her final, her 4th quarter grade. And it just highlights the way that our team is just working together to help kids, feel supported, but do it in a way that's advocating for themselves and teaching them how to do it. So I think that's where we're going to keep growing, as they're gaining those skills.
Thank you. Okay, and so from the central office perspective, Kelly LeBombard, our nurse administrator, she couldn't be here tonight, but we work in conjunction in supporting the schools and, of course, supporting the whole child. 2 programs in particular that we have staffed really well and worked really well with the schools are our early childhood programs and our 18 to 22 transition to adulthood program. Kelly wanted to present some of the nursing work that's happening to support the whole child of our students. For our early childhood programming, we did add a full-time nurse. It's actually 2 nurses that work together to make 1 FTE. They work in our preschools. They work in what's also called our Milestones program, which is a substantially separate program for children with significant and complex needs and at times medical and health challenges. So this allows this position to work in that program. It's stationed in the Milestones program and also works as the nurse for the preschool students. So anywhere between 70 and 75 students that nurse is responsible for, which is also wonderful because it allows the kindergarten to second grade nurse to work specifically with kindergarten and second graders and not in addition to. So this has been a great service. We also showed you some data that she sees over 1,000, has over 1,000 visits and turn to class cases, some not so much, medical interventions, treatments. So we wanted to just make you aware of the importance of that position and how well that program's going because of it. The next program is other end of things at the high school, transition to adulthood. We do have some medically challenged students in that program in addition to others that have complex needs. Once again, 2 nurses share one role as the nurse for that program. They also ride the bus when that level of intervention is needed for students to have safe transit to school and to home. We also have 2 CNAs and an LPN that serves as a one-to-one. And our nurses are very involved with any of their community interactions and field trips to the Big E, the Big Y, Festival of Trees, Shaker Bowl. There's also a special education teacher that is the instructor for that program, related service staff, and they really do use a fantastic team approach. And those 2 programs in particular have been successful in the nursing that ensues. Thank you.
Thank you. That moves us around the circle a notch to look at the instructional practices. And I think Ms. Brown is going to kick us off here. Practices and what we've accomplished this year.
So the goal is that we'll continue to support staff to provide standards-based 21st century learning experiences throughout all grade levels that are rooted in universal design for learning and culturally sustaining pedagogy for all students to succeed, to achieve, and thrive, frankly. And so we're going to go through a lot of our academic data, but we also had some products that we wanted to make sure that we had by the end of the year, and I'm going to talk about those in the next slide. Samantha also sent everyone a PDF with links, so I'm just going to go through these quickly, but you can explore more if you'd like to. So our leadership team had 5 instructional rounds facilitated by CLE, and we're focused on improving our own instructional leadership. We continue that on our own, and we'll continue to do that next year. The Elementary Curriculum and Implementation Committee met weekly from February on to develop a grading guide and pacing guide for as we really integrate the new curriculum that we have with standards-based grading and kind of relaunch standards-based grading now that we have a student information system and gradebook that truly supports standards-based grading. So they did a lot of work. Definitely want to just shout out in terms of curriculum is, the implementation committee, all the teachers who had to learn a whole new curriculum. It's a lot of time invested. There's a lot of emotions involved. And so the administrators take a lot of the brunt of the emotions. So they also deserve a lot of thanks, because it really was a team effort to launch the new curriculum, and implementation takes time. So this is just the first year, and we're going to keep going. But everyone has done an amazing job. And so they used the collaborative planning time to unpack the new materials. They had a coach for foundations that met with all the kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers, because that's part of their foundational standards. They're using foundations to do that. We had a wit and wisdom coach meet elementary teachers for 3 release days, and actually did a lot with the wit and wisdom coach. She came and met with all the elementary administrators. So we put a lot of time and energy and funds into making sure that we had a lot of training for everyone involved to make sure this would work. And then illustrative math will be a full implementation next year. All the 5th grade math teachers have been using it this year. The 4th grade teachers implemented it early, in addition to some 3rd grade teachers and K through 2 kind of not necessarily whole teams, but pockets of teachers. So they all had the launch for illustrative math in our last professional development, and they will have the opportunity in our next professional development to have the third part of that launch. But the coaches, the math coaches, all attended something called the unit planning facilitation. And really what that is just sitting down, kind of like what we've been doing with Wit and Wisdom, and helping teachers to unpack the unit, really see where they're going, so that as they're going through lessons, they really understand the why. And as teachers, sometimes we overteach a little bit because we think, oh, this lesson doesn't really go into it. And once we've taught it, or when we plan that way, we kind of see, oh, it's going to come back. So we don't necessarily have to spend too much time. We also worked, Michael worked too with the reading teachers and special educators to make sure that our universal screeners are aligned with the new DESE requirements. We worked with the K-8 reading interventionists to make sure there's coherence and consistency between our new Tier 1 literacy curriculum and what they're doing, as well as vertical alignment, so that, K1 and 2, it transitions well to 3 to 5 and then to 6 to 8. That's been really exciting because they've been able to meet as a whole team. And then we finalized the ELA scope and sequence. That's really a big part of what the implementation committee did, was prioritize what standards are we really focusing on in terms of teaching and assessing, because there's so many standards, and what are we reporting on, because a parent doesn't need a 10-page report card, right? We really want to know what's the most important. So we did the same with math, K-5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 12. They have a new curriculum as well. Social studies now 6 to 12. The science scope and sequence 6 to 8, they took on, this is their second year in open ed science. And then in terms of professional development, we had a lot of professional development this year on the district days, as well as some of the half days, the first day of school. And we always have had ELPS University, which is where teachers can take asynchronous courses for internal grad credit. So they can earn PDPs, and once they get, for example, 15 PDPs that can count as one ELPS University credit. And all the courses that are offered through there are connected to our initiatives. So it's really like an extra incentive to get people to do even more professional development on what we're trying to focus on. And so this summer, we're going to offer a standards-based grading course through Novak Education. I've had quite a few people sign up for that. Tomorrow, we're training facilitators to then meet with their teams to continue to work on planning for Wit and Wisdom. And we've also offered GEOD's professional development for teachers if they wanted to get a head start this summer. That's the decodables that connect foundations with Wit and Wisdom. And then we have a lot of folks going to Open Ed Sci professional development this summer. So there's a lot going on, a lot of links here if you feel like digging in. I don't know if there's anything you wanted me to highlight, but I'm also trying to be respectful of time.
An incredible amount of work that's gone in to produce these products.
It's a lot of work from lots of people. So yeah, definitely want to make sure everyone gets the credit that they have earned.
So Lauren and I will be speaking on behalf of the 3 elementary schools on this slide. Our connected action steps across all 3 goals are really concretely tied to the different initiatives of adopting those literacy curriculum and beginning to phase in the adopted math curriculum. So after 1 year of implementation with 3 new literacy curriculums, we have kind of a better understanding of both the content and the structure of those programs, and feel like we can move into next year with the goal of trying to now make that our own without losing the fidelity. How we want personalized learning and fit in some small group instruction for the kids, but still maintain the use of those programs with fidelity. We're going to be adding, as Heather said, GEODs into that, and hoping that that is really the bridge between 2 of those programs to help tie things more concretely together for our staff and students. And I know you got a broad overview of the data, but just to drill down a little bit deeper into the data specific to the school at Meadowbrook, we've really been able to see the impact of these new programs on our student learning, with 90% of students at or above grade level on their phonemic awareness on iReady at the end of the year, 81% at or above for phonics on iReady at the end of the year, and 84% at or above for high frequency words at the end of the year. So that really kind of shows you the effectiveness of this new structure. In the regard to the pictures you're seeing on these slides, we just wanted to highlight a couple of fun things that we did in relation to these units. So kindergarten really got into the America Then and Now unit, which was module 3 in Wit and Wisdom. And on the left, what you're seeing is one of our teachers collected antiques from everybody she knows, basically, and created a museum in her classroom with these antiques. It was so cool to see. Her students got to act as museum docents, so they learned about the items at their table, and then they invited all of the other kindergarten classes, as well as a lot of the staff, to their museum to tour. The kids actually, I was having a heart attack myself because I know these are antiques, but she let them touch, feel, play with everything that was there. They had a blast. So it really brought to life a lot of what they were learning about in that unit. And her students became the experts on that. And then another thing kindergarten did with that unit was took a field trip. And in my 9 years here, this was probably the biggest field trip we've ever done. They rented special buses with the potties on them because it's a long drive for kindergartners to go to Old Sturbridge Village and really see now not only the items, but to see those brought to life at Old Sturbridge Village. And that was really fun. The kids had a blast on that trip.
That's awesome. I'm going to talk about math. So as Heather said, illustrative math was only required in grade 5 this year, but will be a big focus in K through 4 as we move into next year. However, many of our teachers had already piloted IM during the 21-22 school year and continued implementing it this year. In addition, we have continued to use ST Math to strengthen the spatial temporal reasoning abilities and have seen great progress. K-5 students exceeded the district goal of 80% progress. That's total puzzles and total minutes. Our progress average was 85%. I just want to give a shout out to Mountain View. They have increased their ST Math completion from 40% last year to 82% this year. And Maple Shade and Mountain View students also participated in several enriching activities. Maple Shade had Student Earth Day art. They created art and it's hanging in the public library. 4th graders engaged in an immigration simulation to learn about the Ellis Island experience. If you go down and around, you'll see students earn the opportunity to win the monthly Academic Adventure Award for perseverance in their learning. There was also a mathematical walk around to create a thinking classroom in which students analyze each other's mathematical reasoning. And at Maple Shade, students reached 100% goal completion for their ST Math. And it's on the next slide. The Mountain View learned to play the guitar and general music class and dissected owl pellets. They participated in several engineering projects.
To the middle school, thank you.
Okay, we don't have any pictures, a little dry. I'll have to try and paint you a verbal picture. But we had a lot going on, particularly in our math. As I know Heather had mentioned, illustrative math and reveal algebra curriculums were introduced this year. We completed year 1. So a big shout out to our math department chair, our coach, and our teachers for all diving into this really student-centered kind of approach. And I think we can see some results bear out in our numbers a little bit later on. We had a really good year in math growth, as you're going to see. So that went really well. And I'm proud of our teachers for diving into that with a good growth mindset about it. We're also continuing to use real-world authentic learning in math. We have escape rooms where you'll see students using their math skills to escape from a space station or find our head custodian, Richie, who was lost in time. I got a picture up with him, which is really cool. You'll see classrooms have been transformed into a restaurant where our students will learn to use their math skills so they don't have to dine and dash or wash dishes to pay for it. They budget everything out, figure out the tip, the percentages. They do the same thing with the travel agency where they're budgeting trips for people. So they're using those math skills in some real world situations so they can see the connections and kind of really value the skills that they're learning. It's great stuff. We did renew our subscription for TCI History Alive curriculum next year. We're beginning that transition to the updated social studies standards in grade 6. So that'll be a big year to look forward to, but I think we put the groundwork in place for that. As Heather mentioned, we finished year 2 of our 3-year open SciEd grant
Teachers have attended a lot of PD. We've been coordinating with other schools, kind of sharing our experiences with theirs. It's really fun if you go into those classrooms to see how student-centered they are. It's really exploratory-based students asking questions and trying to figure things out instead of the sage on the stage time. So it's really fun to see. And I think it's going great for our kids. We've piloted the Science MCAS Innovative Assessment this spring. So be ready if that becomes the new thing going forward. We did complete year 1 of the new Spanish curriculum, Adios, which is really something else. You walk in that classroom, they do not let you off the hook as a visitor. They will answer you in Spanish. They will ask you questions in Spanish and expect you to answer them in Spanish as well. So they have dove in with both feet into that, and it's really fun to see. Our reading teacher completed year 1 of the Orton Gillingham training to improve our Tier 3 reading instruction. We only brought Tier 3 in 2018, I believe, and every year we've been evolving it, trying to get it to better suited to meet the needs of our neediest students. And so this is a huge step in that direction. Orton Gillingham is such a comprehensive program. It's really going to benefit our kids. It's a big step to get trained in that. It takes a long time. So we're glad that she was able to dive into that for us. So we're also seeing the success of our Tier 3 reading instruction. We're looking to add Tier 3 to math. Our data supports that we could have a need for that. So we laid the groundwork this spring, and we're going to be adding that in the fall to meet the needs of those kids in math that are really far below grade level compared to their peers. And we're expecting big things from that. We're going to be using AVMR, Advanced Math Recovery, as that system. We've got our coach ready to take that on. So we're looking forward to see what kind of splash it's going to have for our kids next year. We did a whole year-long professional development on student engagement, kind of using the practices of universal design for learning. We did a lot of walk-arounds this year to see the best practices that are going on in everybody's classroom and see what teachers could steal to bring into their own rooms to try and increase that sense of student engagement that's really getting those numbers that we want to see because it's connected to their learning. So that was really big for us. For 8th grade students, this is another great thing we used our student intervention coordinator for. They test out of math and reading. We have a lot of them on iReady. So during that time, instead of having them do independent studies, we were using the student intervention coordinator to set up tutoring processes where they were meeting up with 6th grade students that were struggling in iReady, math and reading, and really helping to move those kids along. So it's kind of a great step for our MTSS program, and our student intervention coordinator did a great job with that. So we'll be looking to continue that next year, maybe get it going even a little earlier.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. At ELHS, you'll hear that some of the things that our staff has been working on really tie in with what Steve was just talking about. UDL, the Adios textbook in the Spanish classes, and the History Alive So I'll just elaborate a little bit on those. So in terms of UDL, we've been working on that for a while, but this year our staff actually collaborated in professional learning communities, and they explored various aspects of UDL practices that they all kind of wanted to work on teams together. They shared their work in a small group round robin format at our April faculty meeting, and all of the work that they completed is in a shared Google Drive so that people can go in and they can actually utilize some of those practices. The classical and modern language teachers spent most of their time for professional development in implementing the proficiency-based curriculum that Steve had mentioned, Adios textbook. They collaborated together as a department, but they also brought in people from the outside to help with the proficiency-based curriculum. The math department used their professional development time implementing a new curriculum called Reveal Math. Full implementation will start this fall in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. The social science and history department utilized their time implementing a new curriculum as well. Steve mentioned that at Birchland, they also are using History Alive. And it's just nice to see that all these things will vertically align for our students as they come from Birchland to the high school. This upcoming fall, they will be in year 1 of the U.S. history assignment. U.S. history and modern world courses. And finally, we offered a new course this past year, and we will continue to offer it. It is called the ELHS Foundations course. The curriculum was written by the English and Classical and Modern Language department chairs. And basically, it helps students with organization, executive functioning skills, and also teaches them how to use various tools through Google to enhance their digital literacy skills.
Just, if you don't mind, want to just shout out Jen Faulkner, who is the department head for 6 to 12 language. she really mobilized getting almost the entire department to the Proficiency Academy run by the Mass Foreign Language Association, which was a 5-day PD during the summer, and then really brought this new curriculum that aligns very well with the new proficiency-based standards. So she's done a lot of heavy lifting to get her department there. And of course, everybody worked hard to go to those PDs and as Steve said, utilize the curriculum in their classes. Just want to give her another shout out.
She was also one of the writers of the Foundations curriculum.
Right. So there you go.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us around the circle one notch more. And if we're supporting the whole child and we're supporting our teachers with professional development and best practices in terms of instruction, we should see continuous learning at key. So some of the benchmarks, obviously, we'll see when the results come out with the accountability system, state accountability system in September, late September. But we'll go through some of our spring assessments, give you an idea, a lot of which you've heard just through anecdotes from the different schools as they've been presenting for the other goals. But we'll walk you through this. Ms. Brown and I will walk you through some of the assessment results this spring.
And I think, these assessment results are a result of a lot of different things. Teachers looking at assessment data to then figure out what we're reteaching, MTSS teams looking at data to see who needs that double dose or the tier 3, and even looking at tier 1 and seeing what are some things that we need to do differently, like, for example, get a curriculum that's better aligned. So it's kind of a result of a lot of different things. You may remember iReady, we've done this for many years, but the dark green is mid or on or above grade level. The light green is early on grade level. Yellow is 1 grade below. The pink is 2 grades below, and red is 3+ grades below. And for some reason that didn't show up.
Yeah.
Weird.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. I didn't even do like animation. And the great news is that it's looking great. So this is a chart that shows on the x-axis is performance relative to the national norm. So you really want to be in the top right-hand quadrant in terms of performance. And then the y-axis is the typical growth. And so you'll see all 4 schools that use the iReady, next year we'll have some iReady data from the high school as well, are in that quadrant of high performance and high growth. So not only are kids learning and growing, but they're performing well, which really means that they're closer to grade level, which is very exciting. I'm not going to go through where everybody is in terms of that. And then this is our growth. And so we had said we wanted 40 to 60% of students to achieve annual typical growth on iReady, and 30 to 40 to meet that annual stretch growth. And remember, the typical growth, they figure out, how much a student based on this cohort should really grow. The stretch growth is even more, because that's where a student who might have some gaps must stretch to meet those grade level standards and catch up with their peers who are performing at grade level. And so you can see that district-wide, 56% of the kids met their typical growth goal. And then there's 77% there who got pretty close. They got 80 to 99% of their growth goal. And then we have 29% met their stretch goal, which is 1% shy of 30%. But we also have this 11% of kids who got 80 to 99% of their goal. And we'll talk about the performance in a minute.
Heather, can I interrupt just for a second? I have to leave. I'm the summer high school soccer coach, and I'm going to coach the girls right now. So good luck. Thank you all for being here tonight. Antonella is going to take over the meeting. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're on the turf. If anybody wants to come see us after.
All right.
They have power out there?
I hope so.
So too.
Thank you all.
A whole new skill. And then this is the median progress for typical growth per school and the annual stretch growth for each school. Meadowbrook is here twice because they have two different times. So K is at the very bottom. They have their own schedule. And then the 1, 3 to the bottom is for first and second grade. And when it's beyond 100%, that means there are a lot of kids who've gone beyond that stretch goal, which is why the percentage goes beyond 100%. So in terms of performance data, we really want to see 80% of kiddos in the green. I mean, that's the goal we're aiming towards. So you can see growth here. As a district, it's 64%, and 23% are still that one grade level below. So I think when we're implementing so many new curriculums, a lot of times you'll see a dip because people are learning something new. They're doing something different than what they've always done. And so I think this is really exciting because even though we're doing a whole new curriculum, the kids have really still showing growth, like Ms. Lodi shared in terms of the different sub-skills. And you see that in each school. So this is the iReady reading diagnostic fall to spring. Birchland Park was 63% at or above grade level. Maple Shade, 63% at or above grade level. Meadowbrook first to second, 73% at or above grade level. K is 91% at or above grade level. And Mountain View, 64% at or above grade level. So we're working towards that 80.
And the nice thing is that you're seeing the red areas decrease over time between fall and spring. Obviously, the green's growing, and that's what we're presenting, but the red's reducing.
And then the same goes for math. Everybody's still in that top right-hand quadrant in terms of high performance and high growth. And you can see here, 58% of their students met their typical growth, and 8% came close. So that it's really, if you add that 8% and we're beyond the 60%, and 27% met their stretch goal, but 16% were very close. So we're getting there in terms of hitting that benchmark. And then you can see the same thing for math growth per school. And again, the Meadowbrook at the very bottom is kindergarten. So great growth across the board. And if you're looking at performance data, we've got 68% at or above grade level.
Interesting to see that outpaced ELA.
Yeah. There's a lot of work going on in terms of new curriculum, but also really focusing on the math coaches have been working a long time, really trying to get the professional development and materials to help really strengthen students' understandings of numbers and operations. And I think that has a big impact as they go along. And then again, this is per school. So, everybody's 60% or above, and we're still working towards getting to that 80%. That's the ideal, or above, obviously. And you're seeing that red shrink, and everybody is meeting that benchmark. And the only reason why East Longmeadow High School is there is because it just shows up on the report, and every time I cut and paste, it makes it look funky. But they'll have data.
They will have the opportunity next year, 9th graders and possibly 10th graders joining us. It's exciting. So
there's no high school data yet because really what we have is that MCAS. So we'll be able to show that next year.
But just to reiterate some points that Ms. Brown had made is that, as you can see, as you broke down the schools, we have some schools that are above our benchmark targets, some schools that are just a few points below. Our stretch growth is looking good, and we're just a few points below for the aggregate. And we do feel, and I think Ms. Lodi shared some data that shows this, that the implementation of our high quality instructional materials is making an impact and helping us make progress at all grade levels. So that's exciting. We're excited about the future.
Okay, so from the elementary perspective, I just think that everything that we have talked about tonight, we have seen just an increase across the board. We've seen a lot of success, and that doesn't happen in isolation. This happens because our teachers work collaboratively with one another. The district works collaboratively with the teachers. The schools work collaboratively with one another. So here are some pictures to illustrate that. So as Lauren had stated, with ST Math, this picture here is the celebration of students receiving or earning that 100% ST Math completion. And this is a result of teachers working collaboratively with our math coaches to really just see and track where our students are, and those numbers are then fed, in this case, to me, where I publicly celebrate our students' achievements. So it's us working collaboratively to push our students further. The other picture is of professional development, in which our teachers are unpacking and learning wit and wisdom, working together to better understand that curriculum. And in terms of CPT time, which was a huge push this year, I actually have teacher testimonials. Mr. Page, I have teacher testimonials about CPT. You excited about this?
I am.
I'm excited about it. So some of our CPT highlights would be having the time to discuss the new curriculum, being able to discuss pacing of lessons and units and the organization of materials, also what to focus on for assessments and what the data is communicated. Most of us being at about the same lesson or unit allowed for us to have deeper discussions of what worked, what to revisit, but with a different approach, how to make concepts and sounds more visual and kinesthetic, plus strategies to help get the majority of students at 80% were among the many ideas that we brainstormed and discussed. Meeting weekly helped with affirming whether ideas worked or not, along with better timing to discuss current data. Setting goals for the next meetings allowed for this as well. We started each week reviewing a wit and wisdom lesson that we picked ahead of time. Some were in the lesson, some were finished, but the sharing and reflecting of what we should do next time or do extra was invaluable. We also created a team drive and reviewed shared materials, what we had added. We also spent a lot of time sharing our foundations procedures. We learned a lot about good practices from this sharing. Having the opportunity to meet with our colleagues to plan and discuss curriculum was important. We also used our CPT time to meet with our math coach to review student work and plan for next step using Graham Fletcher's Building Fact Fluency curriculum. So these are just some feedback from the teachers themselves about the time that they are spending with one another in order to push our students and our schools forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we again went no pictures here and just sort of dove deeper into the data. As you all know, we put a lot of time and effort and sweat equity into iReady and trying to motivate our students as well as give them time within the school day to work at it, as well as put scaffolding in place if they need it. So we were very proud of the overall typical growth numbers of math being 133% and reading being 125%. You can see here, this is the same slide we presented a year ago, where we show you dive a little bit deeper into how many kids are 3+ grade levels below, all the way up to 1 grade level below. So you can see in math, we started with 348 kids a grade level below or more, and we got that number down to 210s, and you can see how it kind of slides down there. So in math, it was a very successful year in math in terms of iReady data. Reading was also successful, but we know that we want to have less than 235 kids at the end of the year still below grade level. Obviously, we moved almost 70 kids onto grade level, but grade level moves as well the whole time. While 125% is great growth in reading overall, we have some work to do to catch a higher percentage of our kids up to grade level. So proud of both of these numbers, but we can see that there's still work to do. And of course, remains to be seen how it all translates into MCAS success as well. Any questions on that slide? Okay. And then we just added one more slide because I'm out of here, and school committee, while I have you, I've appreciated the support and the collaboration of this committee for 10 years. I really feel like it sets the tone for the entire district, and I have felt nothing but support the entire time as a school leader, and with Connor first and then with Steve. So really appreciate my time with all of you and the support from all of you. And the future's bright, and it is in good hands at Birchland Park. We have obviously put forward the tallest middle school principal in America. He did a great job at all the step-up days. Once the kids were done marveling at his height.
Yeah, if you can zoom in on the picture, you see the shock and awe.
Yeah, and he's sitting there smiling and saying friendly things. He's just so tall. He's just so tall. But anyways, I am extremely happy and grateful for my 10 years, and equally happy and grateful for the fact that Mr. Pearson's going to lead the school forward. I think he's the right person, and I'm thrilled that that's the case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, too, for everything you've done for our school district and the kids and the families, and we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no problem. You're more than welcome. It was a blast.
It was a
blast. It was a blast.
Transitioning to the high school.
Picture missing?
Oh, maybe it's some weird thing again. There we go. I have to go forward and back.
Okay, so on the last slide here, just to talk a little bit about some of the progress on connected action steps at the high school. So at the mid-cycle meeting, we talked about the departmental formative data analysis work that was happening in math, ELA, and science at the teacher level. We've put some of those structures into place over the last couple of years. ELA with Common Lit, science with their CER rubric model, and then obviously math, real math, taking on that new curriculum this year. Since that April meeting, though, and it's one of the things that we heard feedback from school committee, but it's also something that we've been in discussions around for the last couple of years with our central office staff. We've been looking ahead to next year, and we've spent time building upon support and transition structures we've been putting into place for our grade 9 students by implementing a team model where we have a group of teachers who have a common roster for our standard level classes in math, ELA, biology, and world history going into next year. All students on this team are also going to be assigned a ELHS foundations block that is also taught by a member of that team. These teachers also have a common duty time for meetings with each other, with counselors, with administrators. And on that freshman team and across the grade, our freshmen will also be taking the iReady diagnostic test 3 times a year, so we can build upon structures that have already been put in place at the elementary and middle school levels, but also utilize this as a tool to see where students may need more support or skill development at the high school level. So the big thing for us is at the high school, we've always had our teachers really broken up by content area, where we are shifting that going into next year. And we think that we can have better discussions around some of this data is by having common students. So we have all these teachers who, even though they teach different content areas, they're going to have that commonality of the number of students or the students that they're working with, similar to what you see as a team model at the middle school level. But we're focusing on those standard level classes to make sure that those kids have the supports that they need as they transition into high school. Because really what we want to do is make sure that those kids have that right foundation when they come to us. So when they transition in, we can have them be successful for 4 years instead of chasing them when they start to fall through the cracks later on in their high school careers. So we want to set those foundations early, and that's really where we see this team model as being a big benefit to those kids transitioning in. So next year when we get to this goal, you're going to see all of our action steps connected around here are going to be around the implementation of that, making sure kids have what they need when they transition into ELHS. And the last thing I just wanted to highlight on this action step, I thought this might be a good point to do so. Give a little shout out to 1, our social studies department, but then 2, our sophomores, who this year we were in our 2nd year of the implementation of the civics project. When we first took this on, we really didn't know exactly what it was going to be. Last year, the kids, they worked on it, but I will say some of the topics, I don't want to call them superficial, but we were still learning what the process was going to be. This year, the kids came up with some awesome ideas, and not just ideas, but action steps in order to implement some of those. One you saw here this evening when Fumi presented to school committee to talk about the late bus and the work that she did to get ready for that with Daniel. But there's also been a lot of other really cool projects that I will say, surprisingly, I found myself at the middle of a number of these projects this year, but it pushed me to be better at my job as well. Students came to me with the idea of incorporating CPR programming to all of our health classes. It's something that we're exploring, and we're seeing if we have funding to do so. So when all of our students go through our health curriculum, they're not just going to have the curriculum, but they'll also come out with a CPR certification at the end. So just ideas from kids, right? The other one where another group of students was pushing me on bringing in an ASL class into our high school curriculum. So this summer we have meetings set up with Willie Ross to potentially look at adding a ASL class taught by a Willie Ross teacher for the 24-25 school year. Expect that when we have that conversation with you guys next year, if we can figure out how to do that and make sure that we have the proper funding in place, that we'd be looking to add that to our program of studies. And these are, again, things coming from the students that are pushing us to better our school.
Brings us full circle. You can see throughout the various parts of the presentation how all the goals work and are connected to each other. So it's a circle. It's not one goal's more important than another goal. They all have to work with each other and are connected. And there's a lot of people involved, not only in this room, but also our partnership, as Dr. Allen mentioned, with all of you, and then our entire staff making it happen. And more importantly, we're partnering more so at all levels with our students, and that's pretty cool. And that happened quite a bit this year, and you're seeing some of it happen with projects, as Mr. Page just mentioned. So that's our presentation. I don't know if we hit a record time, but just over an hour and a half. Questions? Happy to respond and answer and engage questions. No? Okay. Not only have we had, just so you know, the end of the year and we're celebrating all the achievements, but as Ms. Brown alluded to, we've had quite a bit of professional development going on last week and going into this week. So you can see some of the exhaustion, I think, starting to creep up on our leadership team, even though it's only 6:09 at night. So I'm going to thank them. And if everybody's okay, I'll let them go.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Baby.
How are your kiddos?
Night, Mike.
We're moving on. There.
Yeah, so in your packet, you'll see, I'm very happy to bring to your attention that 1-8 Foundation, I think you heard the principals talk about the Open Syed 1-8 Foundation grant, and I was very happy to receive this letter that stated, says, thank you so much for your continued work implementing Open Syed. We understand that science kits and other expenses have been higher than expected. Enclosed, please find a one-time contribution in the amount of $4,125 to help with the cost. So this is an increase to the original grant, which you heard them say it was a 3-year grant. So we've got this money to expend, and it came in like days later through a direct deposit to the town. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention and get your approval on that.
All right. Move to approve the increase to the 1-8 Foundation grant in the amount of $4,125. Second? Amy seconds.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
3-0.
3-0. Beautiful.
Great, thank you. And the second item in your packet, I'm very happy to say and very thankful, as we all are, to eLeaf for the grants. We received a check in the amount of $51,094.05. And I do believe this is the largest that ELPS has ever received from eLeaf. So we're extremely grateful. And I would like to list off each of the teachers like I do each year for you. So there was Peter Van Buren, Engineering Materials at East Long Meadow High School, $19,034. Michelle Gonzalez, Quiet Space Materials for Special Needs Students at Meadowbrook, $546.16. Hannah Barubi, Musical Instruments at Meadowbrook, $5,960. Christopher Tyler, Vex Robotics at Mountain View, $5,147. Angela Shea, Red Cat Sound Field Amp System at Mountain View, $1,310. Amanda Emmett, Lego Spike Prime Set Computer Programming at Mountain View, $5,999.25. Heather Carabine, hope I'm pronouncing your name correct, Promethean Active Panel 9 Interactive Panel at Maple Shade School, $5,495.80. Alexandra Lennon, Promethean Active Panel 9 Interactive Panel at Mountain View School, $5,495.80. The last one is Therese DeSaulnier, Professional Art Display Panels at Mountain View, $2,106.04 for that grand total of $51,094.05. So again, I would need school committee to approve that, and isn't that great?
I move to approve $51,094.05 from eLeaf for approval. So Sarah made the motion and Amy seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. So passes 3-0.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Cell phones and portable communication device policy
Okay, so
or procedure.
what everybody's been waiting for. Taking all the information from our discussion the previous meeting or two, and then Mrs. Trulio and in discussions with the leadership team, tried to take people's recommendations and put together a procedure that connects to the actual cell phone policy, because our policy, similarly to other policies, does protect instructional time and say that cell phones should not be out or used unless authorized by an individual teacher. And in most cases, since we have Chromebooks, there's no reason to utilize cell phones these days in the instructional setting. So I won't read the entire procedure to you, but simply put, what we hope to do is, and have already begun looking at vendors, outfit every classroom at the middle school and every classroom at the high school with these cell phone tree holders, and they'll have numbers on them. So the recommended procedure here is that teachers assign in all their classes a number to each student. So Gordon Smith walks in, he's at the very first day assigned to slot 1. That's where I place my cell phone for that class. And in talking with teachers, one of the recommendations was, so this is not a have to, but it's as we roll out the new procedure, is possibly use the cell phone holder as a way to do attendance in those first few days or maybe first few weeks, just to establish the routine. Because what we know, going back to that very first meeting that we discussed it with our student liaisons, where we had all 4 present that night, it's really about the relationship the teacher sets from the beginning and the tone and expectation that really is all starting to be established on day 1. So this is not something we want to wait on. We want them to move on it in day 1. We'll talk about it with them during convocation and that professional development day prior to the start with students. Well, I will also get them an updated procedure once the draft is approved during the summer so that they can all start to think about it.
I mean, I think it also aligns with the survey data. I mean, there was definitely dips in engagement.
Right.
So being able to think about cell phones as one of the possible reasons for a lack of engagement with coursework.
Right.
Makes sense.
Great point.
And it came up loud and clear from the educators who spoke at the collaborative that it's definitely becoming more of a distraction, and being able to kind of offer a support that's more consistent across, especially those two sites being Birchland and the high school, makes it so that it's not one teacher doing something versus another teacher not, but that there's consistency. I think this captures that conversation well.
Along those same lines, it could even correspond with the school safety
Right.
from that survey that you're.
Certainly feel much more comfortable texting and using social media on their phones than they would, say, on a district provided Chromebook. Certainly.
It was interesting that one of the things that the educators brought up was wanting students to continue to be allowed to have them during lunchtime, because for some kids that was their only break, and that if they were feeling that pressure or that anxiety to be constantly on during the day, sometimes they needed a break from maybe necessarily being as social as some of their classes were pushing them to be. And that was something that they did ask, that we made sure to kind of call out, and that where their families had to communicate regarding anything, that at least families would know they would have access at lunch, which was good to see that captured very specifically in here.
Is this still going to be considered a pilot for this?
Basically, it's a trial. We want to gather data on it throughout the fall and see how it's working for teachers. So whether that's a survey or whether that's data taken through discussion at a faculty meeting, or both, we want to see how it's working for teachers as we go forward. Because we had pretty good discussion at the collaborative meeting, and that's only 6 teachers or so, but very substantive in terms of what works, what doesn't work, and it does come back to the relationship and the tone that's set right at the beginning.
Will we survey students as well?
We can, absolutely. Yeah, we can add that to our student survey. They definitely, as you saw from our 4 students,
Like, to be honest with.
willing to chime in. The only revision that Mr. Thompson gave me prior to the meeting was in the second paragraph where it says which the student will place, his/her. He offered the revision of will place their own cell phone at the beginning of class, which is fine if that people would like to see that change.
Yep, that's great.
And can you just say what you were thinking of for a question, just so I write it down? And
Maybe as Sarah was mentioning, something tied to the way that they perceive their engagement, or something along those lines, or even a question that alludes to them feeling safe.
Yeah.
As Gordon said, there's without the barrage of texts maybe that would be coming from a typical class environment where they feel safer. I don't know, but perhaps.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
I love it. Thank you. Just want to remember.
So is this something we have to approve, or?
It's a procedure, so technically you don't have to approve it because you've already endorsed the policy, and then the procedure is something the administrators come up with. Since the discussion happened here, it's fine to also take a vote and say that you like this language with the one revision, and then we'll go forward and implement.
I move to approve the new procedure related to policy JICJ regarding cell phones and portable communication devices for the school year 2023-2024.
Motion made by Sarah.
Second.
Seconded by Amy. All those in favor?
Aye.
So passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. We'll get working on ordering these and messaging it out.
next item is our reorg meeting on July 3rd, 2023. Want to see what time was good for everybody. If 2 p.m. was good. Sure, so it was 7:30. Now we're thinking.
It was 7:30
in the morning.
in our agenda setting meeting. A couple different other times got thrown out.
Okay. I thought maybe a little later would be better.
People, possibly were on break and they didn't want to get up at 6:30.
Yeah.
That works.
2 p.m. is fine for me too.
Too good for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're here.
New committee member be at that meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we will.
Yeah.
I'm going to reach out to her just to invite her to come in. A small orientation happens before or after, which will be fine either way, but we'll reach out nonetheless.
Okay.
All right, so 2 p.m. We'll vote for that.
And the next thing, superintendent summative evaluation.
Just to, and there's not much more I can say than was not already said in the presentation. It really does take a team effort. And that starts with all of you, as Dr. Allen said, down through the leadership team, through the entire staff, and partnering with our students. Overall, I think it was an incredibly successful year. That doesn't mean or diminish the fact that there's a lot of work that needs to be done and areas we can improve on. But, I think our work with CLE really helped and helped us as a leadership team stay focused on how we support and provide feedback at our schools as we're going on learning walks, and helped us stay coordinated, which I think is so important as a leadership team. And we're going to continue that next year, working with CLE. We're in one of a few districts that are working with them through their ELAP. Do you know what the breakdown of the acronym is?
Oh, that's a good question.
But their ELAP program is a grant that they've received federally and then invited districts at no cost.
Equity Leader Accelerator Program.
The Equity Leader Accelerator Program. Broken down, what that means is that for us, because we've worked with them now for a number of years, yes, we're going to be in the structure around keeping the focus on our work on equity, but also how do we continue to build our leadership skills and mentor each other, but also then in year 2 of this program, start to develop leadership skills in our staff and mentor folks, hopefully to come into not just being teacher leaders, but maybe even future assistant principals and principals down the road. As all of you know, you're seeing fewer and fewer people jump into roles such as assistant principal and principal. And that's understandable, but that doesn't mean that those openings won't be happening and that we won't need good people. And so if we can develop those leaders here, that's what we'd like to see. And so that
Their major focus is on instructional leadership.
just going through, I'm not going to read all of this. I know that you've had a chance to look at it last couple of weeks. You heard how well our implementation of curriculum is going well. That, again, doesn't mean there weren't challenges. There were challenges. Change is really difficult. Really heartening to hear Mr. Martin give some testimonials to the common planning time, because we didn't always hear that. And so that was really nice to hear. And I think year 2 is going to even be better, because change is hard. When you do comprehensive change the way we've done, where you're hitting people in the comfort zone they've been in for a long time and teaching reading, that's monumentally hard. And so I just want to give some kudos and compliments to Ms. Brown, because she's really facilitated that whole move forward, and at times probably didn't want to be the face of that move forward, but really did an exceptional job doing that. So, I know this is my evaluation, but I can't do it without incredible people on the team. other areas, and then I'm happy to answer questions. One thing I'm really proud of, we've done a lot with our equity work over the years. I've been able to lead some things for the Mass Association of School Superintendents, but the fact that we reactivated our diversity and equity steering committee, and that group had a chance before the end of the year to look at our SMART goals and really weigh in on how and what we might be able to do as we go forward. And also gain some understanding of how that whole process works. That it's not as easy as say, well, can we just have a late bus? Although that did happen. But that there's a process to figuring out how do you make the whole child goal really work and figure out where the district is and where each school is and what action steps will really help move them forward. Because we know, as we just said, change is hard. And so if you go too fast, you're going to lose buy-in, and then you could set yourself further back than you really want to. Anyway, so I was very proud of that. The other thing I'm proud of, given how many moving parts there are, is the fact that we've hit every step of the way in the feasibility study, our deadlines, and we are fully into schematic design. And hopefully this summer goes well, and we'll be gaining information for final budget and have some really good information as we start up the school year around what the final budget will be and what information the town will be looking at as they go to vote in November. That doesn't mean there won't be, because I know it's an agenda item coming up.
Yes.
Informational times this summer. We hope to have a few and maybe add some more. But at the end of the summer is where you're going to see a lot of really concrete, if I can say that, no pun intended with the building, things take shape, because schematic design will be then finalized and presented to the Mass School Building Authority. I'll stop there.
I think just to add to that, Gordon, that change is difficult, and I think there's been a lot of changes this year, and I think the ways that you are able to report out to this group in particular just lend themselves to acknowledging that you have a pulse not only on the changes that are occurring within our district and how you communicate that information to us as a committee, but also how many outside agencies you also sit on and how many outside commitments you have beyond ELPS. I think you do a great job of showcasing that. But I think it also speaks to how you're keeping this school community in the know of what is existing beyond this school community, and you're able to report out on those. And just the building committee alone would have been a large undertaking, alone everything else that you had on your plate. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I agree with Sarah. I think you're helping to make sure that East Long Meadow walks the walk, not just talks the talk. So thank you for this and appreciate your work.
All right.
Thanks, Gordon.
Thank you.
I move to approve the superintendent summative evaluation for the school year 2022-2023.
Motion made by Sarah.
Second.
Seconded by Amy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 3-0.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And then the next order of business is new business that Greg wanted on the agenda and isn't here, but discussion on ways to increase information to community on ELHS building project. I think there's concerns because we don't really meet over the summer.
Right.
So I don't know how much information is getting out. Does the building committee meet over the summer?
The building committee will meet over the summer. We're actually meeting this week, and I think we'll probably meet a few more times we're going to have to meet a few more times this summer. One of the thoughts as we were thinking about just this discussion item was during COVID, we started to do LCAT shows and videos. And we're wondering if that maybe would be helpful, not to the level, obviously, of a full community forum where you're presenting, 30 slides or so forth, but just tackle one aspect of the building project, go through that so people understand it, and then come back a week or two later, depending on Mr. Mackey's schedule, and film another one.
And I think it's important that the community knows what will happen if it's not passed.
Right. And that's been a huge item of discussion since our May 18th forum. And it was in a smaller, not a school building committee. It's been brought up at the school building committee, but we have bi-weekly meetings with the design team and our owner project manager, Skanska. And we've been talking about how do you pull that information, because we've had one or two slides on what's the cost of doing nothing, pull that out and make it truly understandable for the voters, because there's a lot involved in that. And Mr. Mackey has been exceptional because he said that he would be happy to help using, the visual medium and some of his graphic arts talents, which he has many of. Maybe there's a way to extrapolate that so that it makes more sense than just the one or two slides. And just to give you a small example, I don't think people in general, let's put the high school building project aside, fully understand capital project planning for the town and then for schools. We are part of the town capital process and planning. However, the window for school projects tends to be that June 20th, let's say, whenever the students leave, if it's a pretty substantial project, and then August 19th. Unless you can do something where you go into modular classrooms and so forth. And so there's an element of challenge to capital projects with schools that you don't necessarily see with other municipal buildings. And so that alone is something I'm thinking that people are not understanding. So, I mean, we could spend time, say, in one of those LCAT shows and just talk about what is the capital planning process for the town, which starts in September and ends with the culmination and approval of the town budget. So for schools, that means that if we have capital projects that are approved and the budget passes in May, we then wait for the money in the new fiscal year, July 1. Whenever the town sets up that capital account, we then, with our public works department, can go out to bid. And all of that takes time. That could be anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks just to do the bid process. Am I?
Yes, you're right. Yep.
And then you're bringing then you're into the school year. And so often what happens is, even though you may have that money available July 1 of 2023, let's say, we'll just use this year as an example, we may not really go out to bid until late fall, early winter, because you're targeting the next summer as your window.
Especially with projects that would be the size.
Well, the electrical system, we're doing minor work on the electrical system at the high school this week.
And then
the whole front of the high school is down without power. We have generators going to keep our freezers going, and a generator to keep the IT network going. I don't think we're on a generator here. I think
we are not.
Okay. Here.
But what I was just going to also add is that to also put another spin on it is when you do, so the capital project is approved at X amount of dollars, but then when you go out to bid and all this time has happened, the reality is, especially after COVID, we didn't have enough in the capital project budget because all the bids came in higher. So that just causes a whole nother.
The other part that we're seeing, and maybe this will alleviate both the cost escalation and is that because school projects are challenging, we're seeing fewer and fewer bidders.
Right.
So we put our modular replacements at Mountain View, which was approved last year. We put it out to bid in the winter this year, and we got 0 bidders. So we then had to change up, redo the bid, It went out to bid, I believe DPW put it out to bid in early June. And so we're looking to hopefully open those bids in early July, which means that Mountain View could have a construction project where we lose 2 classrooms starting in September. Which means that they're scheduling now 2 sets of classrooms that were in those modulars that do need to be replaced. We need to move on that. But to Ms. Blair's point as well, will we have enough funding? We won't know until that bid is opened. And so those are all examples. I do want to say one more thing, and then I'll be quiet on this. The baseline repair that we keep talking about, as we say, the cost of doing nothing, and people ask questions about that. That estimate is taking all of the different items that bring us to about 110 million, that is the number that they put up there, and saying that it would cost around 110 million if you took it as a full comprehensive project this year, 2023. If you do not take it as a comprehensive project, which is the reality, you won't, then that baseline repairs over time is not going to be 110 million. It's going to far exceed 110 million. And in the end, as you're going over 10, 15 years to work through those different areas, 1, you're going to spend more than 110 million. 2, as you accomplish these projects, there will be other challenges because you're still in this building at that point that will be 70, 80 years old. And you won't have impacted what we really want to impact, which is the instructional environment, which is a lot of what we talked about tonight during this presentation. That's what the Mass School Building Authority was created for, was to how can we help districts take on these large capital projects, but also impact the instructional environment. And the base repair doesn't do that. And so we have no idea, which our architects have said, how much or how little the MSBA would participate in a base repair project. And the reality is that's not what people will be voting on in November. They're going to be voting on new construction because that's where we are in the feasibility study. And if the vote is no, then that's certainly the will of people, and that's okay. I just want to make sure people understand what no means.
I think you're right. Arming people with information is the way to go here, and then they make their decision.
Right, and they can make their decision.
The other very important thing is that we won't be invited back in to MSBA for many, many years. It's just a known fact. If
there's too many districts out there that have urgent needs, and we were and still are one of them, but we're in the process. We're in the system right now. I'd like to stay in the system. But the other piece that I should say is that you take on any one of those items that make up the 110 million. Let's use the roof, for example. That's going to be a debt exclusion vote in and of itself. So it's not going to be one debt exclusion vote that the town will be taking over time. It will be many because these projects are going to be that expensive. And how long you can go without fixing the roof, I guess we can see if unfortunately that would be the will come November. Hopefully that's not the case. But how long can you go without fixing the electrical system? Given that where learning's going and how much technology we use, and for that matter, how many students need climate balancing, which this building struggles to do in terms of their own health and situations that they may have where we have to make sure that the temperature is not too high. And then you go to the second floor of this building last week, today, you're going to be in the high 90s as the sun hits it and then the humidity hits it. And I recommend that you go full tie and suit and get the full experience. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. I had said that I would do that a while ago. I apologize.
Gordon, the only other thing I was going to say is, a lot of our events, rightfully so, ask people to come on site to the high school because it's often been partnered with a tour. But I think one of the ways we might want to consider over the summer, even though we're not meeting in a formal capacity, is making sure that we're delivering the message to people where they are. So maybe thinking about some events maybe at the senior center, like during their lunch, or thinking about ways like, it's probably a little late now, but even thinking about like the 4th of July and how many events happen at the center during that time, or like the summer concert series, like having,
like a booth or something.
Like something like that.
Yeah.
Even if it's every other summer concert series. Like I know that pulls from beyond our community, but at least we're out there in a public way in venues where we know there's a sizable crowd, as opposed to relying on people coming into this space, going out into the spaces where the community is already gathering.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you were speaking about producing some videos, and I don't know what you ladies think, but as a working mom, I don't know if I have time to watch a half an hour video, but I have time to watch a 2-minute video. So I would maybe suggest keeping them short. I know that's really hard because there's so much information, but keeping them short and sweet so that people actually watch them. And then maybe even doing, to Sarah's point as well, a virtual tour. I think that maybe.
Oh, verbose, I can.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Just kidding with you.
But
I am verbose. So.
But just in terms of, the average person who might click on it on social media or who might be on the LCAT web, YouTube page, if I see something is 35 minutes, I'm like, all right, I'll watch that later, and then I don't.
Yep.
But if I see something is 3 minutes, I'm like, I'll watch it right now.
Okay.
So just a suggestion for some of those working parents out there who might, or even parents who are, just busy, or town or members of the town community. Absolutely.
3 minutes, we can grab them. 35.
That's not an easy thing to do, but it might be worth thinking about just keeping it a little bit shorter for people.
And maybe just focus on one topic.
One
like
topic,
you had said.
yeah. We look at
In
capital
each of the
planning.
videos, yes.
What
So
is
it's
it-
like,
what does
oh,
patient
I
care
can-
mean?
If I want information on that, I can just watch one video instead of having to sit through the whole thing and being like, oh, that's what I needed.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, thank you. Good suggestions.
And our last item is the Massachusetts Association School Committee Joint Conference.
So this is the conference that comes up in November. This year it's November 8th through the 10th, and it's down in Hyannis. It's a joint conference between the Association for School Committees and the Association for School Superintendents. If you are interested, we can get an early bird registration special up to July 15th. So this was just a reminder. You don't have to let us know tonight, but if you could let Samantha know if you're interested in attending, we'll do the registration for you and schedule that. And then we'll get the early bird special.
Do we typically have representation?
We, so it has been, Ms. Rochella has gone.
I've gone once.
And we've had Ms. Margin Boucher and Mr. Fonseca have gone pretty consistently. So we do need someone to at least go on the day of the voting when we do the resolutions. So that's usually something we do in the fall. And we designate, last year was Ms. Margin Boucher to vote for the school committee. So you can go on a daily basis, or you can go for as much or as little as you would like.
All right. I'll let you know. Go.
Okay.
All right. So that was the last item. Anything else? LCAT, Don, thank you very much. We don't have a student. All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Motion made by Sarah, seconded by Amy, and meeting adjourned. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.